had a conversation with a Paul, who's a legal mind in this contract. Let's go back to that and look into that conversation. The next part of the conversation.
Yes.
Currently, and I want you to tie your responses to two things that are happening in the country. We are running on a fuel subsidy.
Yes.
And the ministry, the Treasury is telling us that if you look at what we've already for the first 6 months of this year, 71 billion, and that's a lot of money that's going into that particular subsidy. Could you talk to me about what your feelings are about the subsidy as regards the current fuel prices in the country?
Well, the subsidy is just a pig dressed in different lipstick. That's what it is. Because when you look at the problem of this country when it comes to energy,
yes,
the problem is that we've got a government-mandated cartel. That's it. We've got a government-mandated monopoly that deals in oil in this country. Because in any civilized country, what should be happening is you give the licenses to oil importers who then import the oil at their own volition and find customers and sell. And that competition then lowers the price, and the customers, the consumers, get a lower price at the pump. But what is happening here is that the government gives one importer the right to import and then sell to all the other oil suppliers and markets.
Despite all these other importers having the license
exactly.
to import.
So it's controlled essentially by one person at a time. So what happens when that one person goes and gets a higher price? Everybody else is affected. Now, last year there was some sort of reform that the ministry was attempting to say that, you know, we're trying to reform it, make it more democratic, that one person. But as long as they're still talking about one person doing it, there is no democracy there. The best way in any uncompetitive industry, what you have is stagnation, number one. Number two, you'll always have the price being bloated because there is no competition. If it is one person importing, there is no competition. There is no incentive for these people to lower the prices.
Yes.
Or, for instance, I gave an example earlier about how the price fell by 76%, right? 76%.
But we never got to fill it in.
And when it came back, it only came back to 36% of what it used to be before the fall, right? So it never went back up to the full 76 that it had lost. But in Kenya, we didn't feel that. Right.
In fact, by the way, there was a delay, if I do remember, and that's what I wanted to ask you as well, because the next part is, when you look at the way the government is trying to handle this issue,
yes,
what they've said, guys, you see, the only reason as to why we don't have the capacity for immediate price reactions is because we can only be able to bring in 3 months worth of fuel into the country. So when it changes, then we factor that in, which therefore leads us to the Kipevu terminal. They're saying that once we get to complete this, then in fact, we should be sitting with that oil and saying, even if it changes, we have a lot of cover in between that time, then we can get to give you the prices you want.
That's complete nonsense, because
the
truth is,
yes,
if they allowed oil importers to import oil at their own volition, we would have a surplus of oil. Right? And them saying that, oh, we need time to refine because the refinery can't handle all that production. We can buy refined oil. Why not? The oil importers can go to at their own volition to countries that are refining oil, buy the oil from there, transport it here, find sellers that are willing to peddle their oil and sell it.
Yes.
Right? That would immediately lower the price. But the truth is, the energy ministry doesn't want to do that because they've got a tight grip on the price of oil.
Could you take the side in the sense that even if you're saying that this economy is fuel driven, we do know that you touch fuel, you touch everything in this country, and that's why they're afraid. In fact, that's why we've been running on a subsidy. Which one is the better scenario, Paul? Would you let government control the price of this fuel, which is why, by the way, they want to extend a bigger contract to NOC to import maybe 30% of the fuel that we get here, so the government can be able to set those prices and sort of determine the market? Is that a better scenario in the sense of let the government then control the prices of fuel in this country?
No, it's actually worse. It's actually worse. By far, it's worse. Because when you insulate any sector of the economy from market forces, what you're doing is making them unresponsive to the consumer, right? Because it means any complaint the consumer has, because it's a government-mandated subsidy or it's a government-mandated structure, it can't be changed. Right? What happens tomorrow if Omo goes to 50 shillings more than its competitor? They go out of business.
Indeed.
Right? They will go out of business. But what happens tomorrow when the price of oil goes up by 20 shillings? They won't go out of business because there's no one to compete with them. The person selling is one, and he sells to everybody else. Right? So they won't go out of business at all. The problem is that we have an anti-competitive structure. This is something that in legal terms, for the people watching across the world,
Yes.
in some terms it is known as antitrust. In Kenya we call it competition law. So what we usually do in this is that under competition law, where you have a group of merchants that are selling the same product, the Competition Authority of Kenya would be the one looking and seeing if they're colluding with each other to set the price, because that is against the law. You're not supposed to set the price. But by statute in Kenya, they have made that impossible. So they have shielded the oil importers from the actions by the Competition Authority. So the Competition Authority can't even look at the oil importers, because by statute, they are shielded from them. So they can set whatever price they want. That is the problem. Why not allow the oil importers, as long as you've got a license, even if you're buying 500,000 liters, what does it matter, right? Go get your trucks, buy your oil, bring it, sell it.
Then come sell it.
It will be completely up to you as a matter of business, whether or not you make it or you don't. But the government saying that they're going to control this because it's a matter of key importance is complete nonsense. Because look at the other government monopolies in this country, right? The government rarely does anything good in terms of controlling a monopoly.
Even as you say that, somebody's looking at it and then saying, well, you might have a point in that sense, but let's look at exactly where this price is coming from. If you look at the levies and the taxes that are instituted on this particular commodity, now this is what they're saying: should we let the subsidy go? You guys will buy it at 200 and something plus. That's what the international market is demanding now. How true is that? And then would the option not be to then say, well, if we care for this commodity, let's take out all the taxes and levies?
No, because you need to remember that, like I've been saying for a few minutes now in the program,
yes,
when the price of oil was low, Kenya was still not paying the low prices. The Kenyans at the pump were not paying the low prices. Is that by design? That is by design. That is how they do it. Why is it that when the oil price is low globally, Kenya is still paying high prices? So now when it is, but every time when it is high, we are paying the high prices. You see what I'm saying? So when they say now that suddenly when they take out the subsidy, we'll pay 200. How come when there was no subsidy and the price was low, we were still paying high prices? In fact, Kenyans will remember, people were driving from Kenya to go to Uganda
to actually get the fuel.
To get fuel.
Yeah, and Tanzania as
right?
well. Yeah.
People were crossing the border. Why is it that those countries were able to maintain a low fuel price, but Kenya was not? Uganda is a slower economy than ours, right? It's not as big as our economy, but Kenyans were driving across the border to go to Uganda. Can you imagine how shameful that is? That the strongest economy in East Africa, people are driving literally from their houses, driving to the border to another country to get fuel because fuel is so expensive here. Right? So anytime now they're talking about the price being 200 shillings if the subsidy goes away. How come the price was never low when there was no subsidy? When it was low globally, why was the price not low here in Kenya? Why was the price not commensurate with the global pricing at the time? Because every time it is high, Kenyans pay high, but when it is low, we don't pay low. Right? So that tells you that something else is at work here. This is not market forces as they're claiming. Yeah. There's something else going on here.
Because there's a fuel subsidy that we're paying right now, which is at, 5 shillings per litre? Again, but let me come back to you on this again, Paul. Then you ask yourself the question, can Kenya then have a say in international fuel prices? Our best chance, Paul, is to go to exactly what happened to the Turkana exploration that gave us hopes of us being a net importer now of oil from this country.
Exporter, you mean?
Exporter, sorry. You do know that will give us a proper chance, but how far are we? Because the same ministry is telling us that we are actually making headways when it comes to exploration in this country.
Well, that's heavily dependent on a few things, because we have to pay back the price of exploration.
Yes.
The company that was doing this is Tullow Oil, and they need to first recoup the cost of their investment before Kenyans can start to see any market change across the board.
Yes.
Because you'll remember that this company has been exploring for oil in Kenya for a considerable amount of time without much success until they found the oil wells in Turkana. So it is the oil sites in Turkana, I should say. So in terms of an immediate effect, No, not really.
Not really.
Not really. Not an immediate effect because, and also even if there were to be an immediate effect, we'd have to be producing hundreds of thousands of barrels of oil for us to feel an effect in terms of the lowering of the price. But even at that, it won't go low for as long as the cartel remains at the Ministry of Energy in terms of setting the price. Because if it is an undemocratic enterprise where you have, where you have the process that is not determined by market forces, yes, where it is something else that is working here, you'll always have an uncompetitive price. So the problem is not particularly one of oil supply in Kenya. It has never been, right? It's the same thing that happened with the plastics ban. We never had a problem with trash, right? The problem was one of trash disposal. We didn't have a proper waste management system. So it's just shifting the players on the game of musical chairs, but not actually changing the chairs. That's what these people are doing. Because every year they come and say something new. Oh, this will change it, this will change it. But the core of the issue is that the Kenyan oil industry is undemocratically run. Yes. It is not open to the competition authority. It is not open to competitive pricing by allowing the players in this industry to compete against each other. Because what is happening now, it is high-level collusion. That's what's going on. Because when you have one player being responsible for importation of the oil, right? The chances that that one player, A, has either bribed somebody at the ministry in order to get that, right? Or two, has colluded with the others in order to set the price, which is not what you want in a business. If Samsung and Apple start now colluding in order to set the prices of phones, the consumer does not benefit. But what we're seeing now is that if you allow them to compete generally as a business, how business operates, the price will go down.
Pretty much.
And it will go down almost overnight. Yes. Because now you'll have people have the capacity to import oil as much as they want, and the price will go down immediately.
Pretty much. Paul, in 45 seconds, that's exactly what I've been told that we have before we walk out of the studio.
Sure.
So now, IMF is saying fuel subsidy unsustainable. In fact, even Treasury right now, somebody could be dancing that they're not going to be in charge of the next government and talk about fuel subsidy because they were struggling to see where they can get that money for the fuel subsidy form. World Bank is saying you got to think about that fuel subsidy because at the end of the day, it's actually going to constrain your budget. If you look at the next governments that come in, they're already promising that we're going to lower the fuel prices in this country. In fact, if you look at the manifesto, that is top in the agenda. Is it possible? If it's not subsidy, if it's not cushioning Kenyans from the expensive fuel prices, what do you think is going to be the magic bullet per se in the first 100 days? Because majority of them are saying 100 days, 100 days. The things that need to be fixed right now, cost of living and fuel is top of that. In 45 seconds, what do they need to do?
Okay, if I had the opportunity to give my advice, maybe even to the people in the government, the first thing is that there has to be a diplomatic approach in that we need to approach the oil exporting countries under OPEC and tell them that we do not have the EV mandates that North America and Europe have, yes, and therefore we're going to be a long-term buyer of oil for the years to come. So the price for us cannot be the same as them because they are weaning themselves off of oil. We just started now to properly start utilizing oil. That's number one. Number two, the breakup of the oil monopoly at their Ministry of Energy. That needs to go away. Until that goes away, the price is still going to be up. That's just a fact. That's how it is. Until they break that up, the price is always going to be up. Right? Number three, we need to explore our oil options here in the country and also start looking for alternative sources of energy that can power our economy as quickly as possible. Yes. So the planned construction of the nuclear power plant, we need to be going that at that full speed ahead. And if you'd read Yoweri Museveni's op-ed on the Wall Street Journal, he says that Africa needs to be pursuing a carbon-based economy unapologetically, and I support him because Western Europe, America, and these other industrialized countries pursued these policies, and they have gotten to where they've gotten because they used the cheapest, most effective means of getting to a position where the economies could sustain their people. Yes. We also need to go down the same route, and we have no apologies to make. Our people don't have enough energy to power a light bulb, let alone a whole electric car. So this electric nonsense needs to stop immediately, because first of all, we need to provide enough power for our people to even have a light bulb in their houses before we can now start talking about electric cars.
Pretty much.
So that's it for me.
Paul, we need to talk more on this. I mean, we've just scratched the surface, but that's essentially Paul's view of the politics of expensive fuel. He's saying, Kenyans, there's a cartel at the energy ministry. Let the market play out. That's according to Paul. So let's hopefully hope that the next government would actually let the markets play out so we start getting the commodity at the price that the markets will dictate. And according to Paul, it's going to be cheaper. My name is Simba Elijah Charles KIAGE. I'll see you tomorrow for another episode.